want to say hi to everyone? Come here, honey. Someone was down there meowing at me while I was getting ready to do this. Do you want to say hi to the people? Or are you mad at me? You want to say hi to everyone? Hi, bird. Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm business and branding attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Colorado. This is Little Bird, and welcome back to All Up in Your Business. Okay, you had enough? Okay, bye, bird. Well, thank you, Little Bird, for joining us for a moment there, and thank you for joining me for another episode of All Up in Your Business. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click that little bell so you get notified anytime I post a new video. You can also check the description for some links to additional information and resources like my free Ultimate New Business Checklist. Today, we're going to talk about registered agents, and specifically registered agents in the case of a single member LLC. If you've watched any of my other videos about single member LLCs or avoiding the risks of a single member LLC, you know that one of the big principles of limited liability protection and avoiding piercing the corporate veil is separateness. Keeping a separateness between you as the owner, single member, and the LLC itself. This comes into play with things like having separate bank accounts for your business and your personal, not commingling funds or commingling assets, and following certain legal formalities that sometimes feel kind of silly in a single member LLC, but are nonetheless quite important. And so when we're talking about that separateness, the question often comes up of, well, just how separate does this need to be? For example, is it not separate enough if I, as a single member LLC, or as the member, am also the registered agent for the single member LLC? In other words, is it bad, or do you put yourself at risk if you are the member of the LLC and the registered agent? In case you don't already know, the registered agent is the person or entity that's appointed to accept service of process on behalf of an entity, like an LLC. Every state requires that if you've registered an LLC or a corporation in that state, you must have a registered agent with a physical address or physical location in that state. There's really no way around it, no exceptions. If you've formed a company in a state, you will need a registered agent in that state. And so if the LLC is sued or has any kind of legal proceedings going on, the registered agent will be the one to accept those documents, that service of process on behalf of the company. The registered agent in itself, solely by virtue of being the registered agent, doesn't have any other interest in the company. Being the registered agent doesn't mean you are also an owner of the company. It doesn't mean you're a manager of the company. It doesn't mean you have any say whatsoever in what the company does. You are solely the registered agent, and that is the sole role is to accept legal documents, service of process on behalf of the company. But does that mean that you can't also be a member and the registered agent? No, not necessarily. Of course, it's going to depend on your state's requirements. Each state is going to be a little different, but for the most part, most states only require that the registered agent be 18 years of age or older if it's a person, a living individual person. They have to have a physical location in that state, and of course, they have to consent to being the registered agent. You can't just say, this person's going to be my registered agent, even though they don't know about it. No, the person or the company has to consent to doing so. For the most part, though, as far as I'm aware at least, there are no states that prohibit a member or a manager from being the registered agent for their own company. Some states, in fact, such as Colorado, permit the company, the LLC, to be its own registered agent. Not every state permits that. Some do, but in many instances, the company itself can be its own registered agent. But so if you are a single member LLC or forming a single member LLC and you're doing it in the state that you live in, where you are physically located, often it makes most sense. Well, why don't I just be my own registered agent rather than having to maybe pay a registered agent company or find someone else to do it? Why can't I do it? And really, the simple answer is you can be your own registered agent if you're a single member LLC. That on its own, the fact that you as the single member LLC are also acting as the registered agent for the LLC, that fact on its own is really not going to do anything to put at risk your liability or the limited liability protection that you get from the LLC. There are a number of factors that a court will look at if the question of piercing the corporate veil comes up to determine if there is an alter ego between the company and the member or the members. Really, none of those factors have anything to do with registered agents. So again, that in itself, you being your own registered agent in itself, really isn't going to put you at any risk. Of course, though, if you are doing all these other things that you shouldn't be doing, like you are putting all your business funds and business income into your personal account, if you're not keeping things separate, if you're commingling funds, if you're not following corporate formalities, if you're trying to use the LLC to avoid otherwise legitimate liabilities or debts or claims, if all of those other things or some of those other things are happening, then sure, maybe the fact that you are also the LLC's registered agent might be another factor that can go into that. But if you're doing everything right, then no, the fact that you're the registered agent isn't going to increase your risk of liability or of piercing the corporate veil. Does that mean we should all be our own registered agent? No, of course it doesn't. There are plenty of instances where we as the single member wouldn't want to be our own registered agent. It could be, for instance, if we are working from home, if we run our business out of our home, and that is where we are physically located. If we then want to act as our own registered agent, our home address would be the registered agent's address. And the registered agent information in every state is going to be publicly available. People can look up your LLC info and see the name and address of your registered agent. So if you don't want your home address publicly available as the registered agent, that might be a reason to not be your own registered agent and instead use maybe a registered agent service. Or maybe you don't mind using your home address, but you've got some nosy neighbors, or you've got kids or roommates or other people in your home who may not want to have to deal with a process server coming up to your door. If you were to get sued, if the LLC was to be sued, someone would knock on your door, if that's the address, and would serve you with court papers. Your neighbor might see that happening. Friends might see that happening. It could, I don't know, be embarrassing if you think that's an embarrassing thing. It just means, in my opinion, that you're doing business and someone might be mad at you. It's not always a bad thing to be involved in a legal dispute. I mean, it's not fun. Anyway, that might be a situation where you don't want to be your own registered agent, or if you're not going to be home for the most part during regular business hours. Because again, the purpose of the registered agent is to accept service of process on behalf of the LLC. If the registered agent isn't there, then they can't be served. There are other avenues that can be addressed potentially, but if no one's there during the day at that address, you risk missing that delivery of those important documents, and you could potentially put yourself at risk for other legal issues. So those are some reasons why you may not want to be your own registered agent for your single member LLC. But for the most part, if those things don't apply to you, if you don't mind using your home address, if you're going to be home during the day for the most part at that address, and you don't want to spend the additional money on maybe a corporate registered agent service, it's perfectly fine. But if you're nervous about it, if you want to keep your info private, or just don't want to be your own registered agent, then the best option is to work with a reputable nationwide registered agent service. And I will link to a few of my favorite registered agent services in the description as well, if you're trying to figure out which one's best for you. That's all for this episode, folks. If you learned a thing or two, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and maybe drop a comment below. And again, don't forget to subscribe, hit that little notification bell, and check the description for links to additional information and resources. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.